Hey guys, and welcome back to another Unreal Engine 5 tutorial. So in today's video, what we're going to be going over is how to create snow, which you can see on screen now. So as you can see, we have this Niagara snow particle effect or particle system, which we're going to be going over and creating today. So without further ado, let me delete this and I'll show you how I've done it. So the first thing we're going to want to do is we want to actually create our particle emitter. So we're going to hit Control Space to open our content browser, right click, go to Effects or FX, and then we want to get a Niagara emitter. So we want this one here. We're going to click that, we're going to click New Emitter, hit Next, and then you can see we can use any one of these templates, and we're going to be using a fountain or a looping fountain spray. And we're going to press Finish there, and now we have this, and now we've created our Niagara emitter. I'm going to name this one NE for Niagara emitter underscore snow, as that is what this is going to be. It's our snow emitter. So we'll open it up like so. Now in here you can see we have this particle system here, which is essentially a fountain of water. Now you'll notice this already looks a lot like snow for us. Obviously it's going the wrong direction and going far too quick, but the actual particles themselves look like snowballs. So that's why we're using this. It just makes our lives a lot quicker and a lot easier. We just obviously need to change some things with this to make it look how we want. And there's actually not too much we need to change. First things first, let's change the speed and direction of this. So to do that, we're going to search for velocity up in the top right, and we want to scroll down until we find the minimum and maximum velocity. So it should be somewhere around here. So it should be under the add velocity section. So if we go down here, we have add velocity and then velocity speed. The minimum and maximum for me is 500 and 850. I'm going to set this to minus, so it's going to be going down, not up. I set it to minus 1000. And then a maximum of, well, I don't know where this is just taking me, sorry. So let me find it again, I press tab, and a maximum of minus 850 instead of 850. So now you can see it's going to be going straight down like this. Obviously this is pretty quick still, but we'll get into that later. Around here as well, we should also have, I don't know why it keeps moving me whenever I press enter or tab or anything, but we should also have the cone angle, which by default is 32. I'm going to set it to 45 just so it has a wider spread. Really don't know why it's doing this. It wasn't doing it earlier. It's kind of annoying, but everything is working. It's just for some reason removing the tab. But you should see we now have the different velocities and the angle here. What we want to change next is the radius of this. So at the moment it's still only going to be going in this tiny cone here, which again is obviously not what we want. So up at the top where we search for velocity, let's search for shape location. And under the shape location here, we have our sphere radius. By default it's 8. We're going to set this to something a lot bigger, for example 5,000. Now you'll notice these are going to be falling a lot better, as you see here. Obviously this isn't perfect still, but it's a much wider area and they're falling slower. It looks more like snow now. Now you can set this value to whatever you want. It doesn't have to be 5,000, and the bigger your map, the bigger you want this radius to be. Or what you could do instead of having this in your map is you could attach this to the player character, or have it just follow the player around, so you can have it in a smaller localized area but still everywhere the player is going to see, which will just make it run a lot more efficiently, because obviously the bigger this is, the more particles you can have, the laggier it will be. Once you've changed the radius there, the next thing we're going to do is increase the spawn rate. So as you can see, there's hardly any particles in here now because it's using the same amount on a much wider area. So we're going to change the spawn rate. So let's search for spawn rate now, and we can see this here. By default it's 90. I'm going to set it to the same as my radius to see what that looks like. So for me that was 5,000, and you can see this looks a lot nicer now. If we set it to 2,500, it's going to look something like this. The higher the number, the more you're going to have. So if you want it to be in a blizzard maybe, you could have a really high number like this. But I think I'm just going to leave it as 5,000 just to see, as I think that's going to be a good value for me. Next we want to change how quick they're falling, because you might like this, but for me I think this is still a little bit too fast. So I'm going to search for gravity now, because that's how we're doing it. We're doing it based on gravity. By default it's minus 980, as that is what default gravity is on Earth inside of Unreal. So this would be good for rain, but for snow I want it to fall a lot slower and a lot more majestically. So let's say minus 25, and you'll notice they're now falling a lot slower, perfectly like so. And I think that's going to be good for me. Again, with all of these values you can obviously change them by yourself to see what looks best for you, but for me in this example these are the numbers I'm using. Now because they're going to be falling very slowly over a wide area, these aren't necessarily going to hit the floor because they're going to be despawning before they manage to do that. So we want to change the lifetime of these. So under initialize particle we have lifetime. I'm going to set the minimum to 10 and the maximum to 15. Again, obviously, the longer they're in the level, the more particles you're going to have, the more laggy it will be, but we obviously still want these to be able to have enough time to fall to the ground. So you might not need it to be this high, but I want it to be this high for me. And you'll notice we now can see we have a lot more in here because they're not all despawning straight away. And finally, last but not least, there's one more thing I'm going to change, and that's just the size of them. So it might not look like it on here, but these are actually pretty big. So what we're going to do is search for sprite attributes, and we should see it down here, and we have the uniform sprite size. This is going to be between 6 and 12. I just want it to be between 6 and 6, so it's going to be the same size. It's spherical, it's perfect for what we want. And obviously you can make that bigger, you can make that smaller, but this is what I've got. And we can save and apply this, and this will now be the snow particle effect working perfectly for us. If we were to close this, we can then create our system. So if we go to our content browser, we have our Niagara emitter. If we right click on this, create a Niagara system, this is what we actually need to use to then drag into the level, put in a blueprint, spawn in, whatever it is, this is the system we use. So if we drag it in, we should see that we now have snow working perfectly within our game. As you see, obviously, we have the snow inside of our game falling down. This is pretty heavy, there's quite a lot of it, but again, you could change all these values. So for example, if I were to go in here and let's change the spawn rate, so we have 5,000, let's halve that, so that's a 2,500, we should see now that there's half the amount in here. Or if we were to increase it, so we were to double it instead of halve it, we should see we've now got twice as much, so there's a lot here. And then we can increase the speed of these to make them coming down heavy and like a blizzard. But again, this is all I'm going to be doing today. Let me just set it back to 5,000, as I think that looks the best for me in this specific case. I'll apply, save that once again. But I think that'll be it for this video, as we've done everything we want to do. What we've done is we've set up this Niagara particle system in which we can create snowfall or just snow inside of Unreal Engine 5. So thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it and I hope you found it helpful. And if you did, please make sure to like and subscribe down below. So thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.